Yo guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today we're going to be reviewing Doctor Who Season 1 Episode 5, Dot and Bubble. And I'm going to be going ahead and reviewing this all in a load of detail, telling you essentially everything, my thoughts on absolutely everything, from the story to the set designs to the acting to everything that I can possibly think of, music, CGI, all that good stuff. So we're going to be covering all of that in this video today, and I'm going to be doing my full, honest, proper review on this video. I did a first thoughts video on this episode, and I've done reviews on all of the episodes in Season 1 as well as the 60th anniversary specials. So go ahead and check them out if you haven't already, because they are available to watch right now, and I'm going to continue doing this for the rest of Season 1, and then I'll see how these videos do, and if you guys are liking them and stuff, then I may as well just do I may as well do something for Season 2 as well. But yeah, basically, let's go ahead and fully analyze this episode, Dot and Bubble. Let's go. But just before we get into this whole review, please hit that subscribe button, turn on the post notifications. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel, and I'd massively appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button right now. And if you like Doctor Who as well, now is a good time to hit that subscribe button. And also smash a like on this video, because if you're enjoying these Doctor Who reviews, or you just like Doctor Who in general, you don't have to fully agree with my opinions on these episodes, you just have to like Doctor Who in general, because I've got a lot of Doctor Who content coming to this YouTube channel. And that ranges from more reviews like this to reviews of products and merchandise, including the 14th Doctor's Sonic Screwdriver prop replica, which is coming sometime. I don't know when exactly it's going to be coming, but I do know it's going to be coming at some point in the nearest future, possibly, question mark. So yeah, stay tuned for that, because I will be doing a full in-depth review of that, a very, very expensive, exclusive prop replica that basically there's not going to be many other videos on YouTube about it. So yeah, this will be the channel and the place to get all the good reviews and content of Doctor Who. So yeah, subscribe and smash a like on this video too. And who knows, this could expand and this could do more Doctor Who stuff. If you guys are enjoying it, and I'm enjoying making these videos, and people are engaging with this stuff, then I'm 100% down to make more Doctor Who content on this YouTube channel. I love Doctor Who. It's been my favourite TV show forever, basically. And yeah, just absolutely love Doctor Who. So I would be definitely down to make more Doctor Who content. Possibly even a fan film or two, or many in the future. But that is for another video at another time. For now, let's go ahead and review Dot and Bubble. So let's start off with the actual plot. So we start off and open up on this main character. I believe the name is Lindsay, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I've watched this episode twice. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's Lindsay or Lindy Pepperbean. I remember the second name. And yeah. But basically, opens on this character, and instantly she is kind of a little bit unlikable, a bit of a bitchy character, if you will. Yeah, she's a bit unlikable as a first character. And first off, this episode gives me massive Love Island on a different planet style thing, because this definitely gives off them vibes 100%. And I really, really like how this story is almost cemented in futuristic sort of things, with the future of social media being a bubble. And I really, really like how that was displayed and come across in this video, and how everyone on this planet was essentially very, very selfish, very, very closed off, and just, even though they were very, very social through the bubbles, they were like really, really closed off in real life. As they said, they hadn't hugged people and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, you can tell that there's some serious issues going on, and possibly this is like a very futuristic style story, and something that is actually quite realistic when you compare it to a lot of other Doctor Who stories, like talking space babies and literally like a god who's a devil, who's what happened in the Devil's Court. Like, let's just put it that way. But yeah, so it's definitely a bit of a futuristic, realistic sort of spin on an episode, and I really enjoyed it. So let's continue with the story. So Lindy continues with her day, and the Doctor is sort of trying to get into contact with her through the bubble, and I think this was great, and all the CGI, I've got to say, is really, really good, but I will touch on that a little bit later on in this video. But the Doctor basically is trying to get in contact with her, and she's kind of ignoring him, and we do find out why in Unleashed, which I wasn't blatant. This wasn't like blatantly obvious. It was very, very like sprinkled in, and this is the first moment where you sort of think, well, she's very, very defensive to people who aren't of this planet, 100%. So specifically, Ruby and the Doctor, and I'll keep that in mind for later on in this video, because it does come up again, and there is a reason. There is a reason that Russell T Davies did say, and it's pretty insane. It leads to a pretty insane ending to this episode. But nevertheless, let's carry on with this. So basically, she ignores it and all that kind of stuff, and then we sort of pan out from, well, this is sort of skipping past a little bit, but there was a little bit earlier on in the episode, which was really, really cool. She's like getting ready and stuff in the morning, and then essentially it pans out, and we're introduced to the monster of this story, which are these like slug things that sort of just like people walk into them and they close up and eat them. Yeah, it's actually a pretty interesting concept. But anyway, fast forward to where I was at the story. So basically, Linda, or whatever the name fully is, I'm very close, but I can't quite put my finger on it. But yeah, basically, main character goes into work, which is essentially this like 2-hour shift, and essentially what happens in this scene is she sits down, and then Ruby contacts her, and she takes a little bit of like trusting Ruby, because obviously Ruby is not from that planet, and she's not recognizing Ruby either. So it's like, interesting. These people are just randomly here. They're not usually here, and it's a very, very interesting reaction, I suppose. So eventually she persuades her to drop the bubble, and that is when she realizes that her friends have been eaten alive by these huge slugs, which is currently devouring literally one of her friends who is sat next to her in the chair. So this is when she goes back into the bubble, and it's like a comfort blanket to her at this point in this story, and she's like very, very dependent on this bubble, and it's actually a really, really interesting storyline. And then, after a little bit more persuading from Ruby, she stands up and tries to walk out, and then realises that she can't walk without the assistance of the arrows, which are provided by the bubble. And that actually shows how dependent this character has become on just using this bubble through everyday life. Like, they can't function without it, which is a very, very interesting concept to sort of add into an episode like this. Anyway, fast forwarding a little bit, after a little confrontation scene in the lift with one of these slugs directly, she eventually makes it outside, and they're figuring out that they don't eat people. They don't eat everyone. So anyway, she comes outside, and all of the slugs are sort of outside, and she drops a bubble eventually, and then she gets scared because there is literally an infestation of these huge slugs everywhere, and they're eating people. Like, people are literally walking straight into them and being eaten alive. So she runs off to hide, and that is when, funny little plot twist, the bubble goes on low power mode and eventually cuts out. And this is kind of the moment when they start figuring out, like, oh, well, you need to come to us. So basically, you need to try and find this location so that you can come and actually meet us, and then we can save you. And that's basically where the story goes next. And then basically she gets up and sort of like is still learning the ropes of walking and stuff. So basically she walks into a lamppost and then walks into the lamppost again, just to emphasize how bad she is at doing this. And but yeah, after all of that and walking into a lamppost twice, she eventually comes across where she needs to be. She turns and there are 4 slugs there, and I've got to say, a point which I need to add in here is that the slugs, this whole scene was just so well shot for me. I think it was very, very well shot, and having them big overhead shots as well really, really show, like, oh, she needs to get through this, and she can't exactly walk very well. Anyway, she's trying to get through these slugs, and she stumbles almost into one of them, and that is when a voice from beyond the slugs comes and essentially guides her out. And it turns out that this character becomes kind of a bit of a main character, and it is a character called Ricky September. And this character becomes very, very iconic in this episode, and I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about this guy as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later on as well. Anyway, continuing this right now. So, eventually they get inside, and that is when Ricky September figures out that the homeland of these people has literally been overridden and destroyed by these slugs. So, their entire families are all wiped out, and nobody is coming to save them. They're on their own. So their best bet is to escape from this place, and they go in and basically down to a more old, battered sort of location. I've got to say the set design is insane for a lot of these sets, but I will get back to that in a second. I do say that a lot, but there's a lot to unpack in this episode. So yeah, essentially they go down and they have to escape the room by using a keypad. And so Ricky's doing this whilst the main character is sort of sat there. And that is when they realise that the slugs are eating people in alphabetical order of the last name. And that is unfortunately when they realise that Lindy Pepperbean is next on that list, after obviously seeing someone just before her being eaten by one of these slugs. So yeah, that happens again. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say that she did charge up the bubble again, so she is now using the bubble again to talk with the Doctor and Ruby. And yeah, I think this is a very, very interesting concept, and a nice way to show that they were like picking him off. But they sort of think, oh, we're alright, we're safe. Surely the slugs can't just get down here. So we're kind of safe. And then comes the realization that the dot and bubble sort of device is kind of the root. That's why they make them walk into the slugs. And all along, the dot and bubble has been kind of the evil character trying to pick off all of these all of these people one by one, and it's very, very interesting. Little concept. Anyway, Lindy then gets attacked by the Dot, and there's this really, really cool little action bit where the Dot's like flying around and hitting into her and all that kind of stuff, and then Ricky September steps up and defends her. And in return, that is when she actually confesses to the Dot that Ricky September was actually called Ricky something else, but beginning with C, which becomes before Lindy Pepperbean. So essentially, she sacrifices this character, Ricky September, and I've genuinely seen nothing like this before on my feed, where just loads and loads of posts and people saying like justice for Ricky September and R.I.P. Ricky September, all that kind of stuff. Like it's actually pretty insane, and I love it. I'm all for it 100%. I think it's just hilarious that this has became such a big thing from this episode, and it just shows how like more mainstream and big Doctor Who is now, that there's literally like memes of things happening in the episode coming straight after the episode, which is really, really cool to see. Anyway, this is the moment we find out that Lindy Pepperbean isn't the nicest person, and this does escalate a little bit later on, but this is when you tell that she is genuinely a bad person. Like, we were right to think that she was a bit of an unlikable person all along. But nevertheless, she does escape. Just about escapes. And this is when she walks down the ladder and finds herself face to face with the Doctor and Ruby, and she can escape. And I've got to say, this scene was a very, very powerful scene at the end of the episode, and I've got some good things to say about this scene and some little improvements to say about this scene, I would say. But yeah, overall, I think the scene was very, very powerful, and it was a really, really good, well-made and well-acted scene, especially from Ncuti Gatwa. Anyway, so what I'm talking about is obviously the scene where the Doctor offers Lindy to go away with them, but she declines because in like quotation, they're not like her, so that we could never go with you because you're not like us. And originally I chalked it up to being like not like a direct racism thing, but more of a like, you're not of our planet, so you're not gonna be like, we're not coming with you because you're not of our planet. We're not gonna mix that and stuff like that. And that's like originally what I did think that was like meant, but obviously it was explained in Unleashed by Russell T Davies that the actual reason that she didn't want to come with him is essentially because he is a man of colour rather than a white person, which, funny enough, then Russell actually mentioned it, then you start realising that every single person in this episode up to that point was white except for the Doctor, which is kind of a crazy thought, especially with how like diverse shows try to be nowadays, like how many different races and genders and all that kind of stuff they want to push into these episodes. It definitely was, but I didn't really notice, to be completely honest with you. Like, I was just enjoying the episode and I got through it, and then like, you don't really notice a full 100% because you're just that invested in the actual storyline and watching the episode that you don't really notice it. And I think it was done very, very subtly up until that point where you kind of do realise that, well, there's something definitely going on here. And I thought it was more or less to do with, you're not the same species as us, we're all as one as a planet, and we're not going with you because you're not the same species of the same planet, all of that kind of stuff. But obviously, like, it could have still been a bit of both with that as well, because I do think that she very badly treated Ruby as well. Like, she wasn't particularly nicer to Ruby and not as nice to the Doctor. Like, she treated both of them pretty badly throughout this episode, and obviously that added to her being very unlikable, because obviously as an audience we travel with the Doctor and Ruby, so we follow them mainly through there. So obviously when you see somebody like essentially disrespecting them, it does definitely feel like you start to kind of not like that character, which is pretty understandable. Anyway, the Doctor is like literally begging them to come with him, and they just keep on denying him, and eventually they walk away. And that is literally the end of the episode. The Doctor goes back into the TARDIS and the episode ends, and we get the next time trailer, and that is the entire plot of the episode. I've got to say, I really, really enjoyed the plot of this episode. I thought it was really, really great. And yeah, very, very cool. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about loads and loads of different elements. And let's start with that ending. So, first of all, the location used was actually in a dock, and they actually brought like little elements down to there to a set. So that wasn't like a full-on set, it was more of a location shoot, which I think looked really, really cool, and it actually did work really, really well. But nevertheless, all of the sets in this episode looked phenomenal. As always, they absolutely killed it with that kind of stuff. Also, the CGI for the bubbles looked absolutely insane. I've got to say, it did look a little bit ropey for some of the slug characters, but it's Doctor Who. It does have that like Doctor Who-y feel to it, and I really, really like the slugs as monsters, because they really, really did feel like a classic Who villain, and I really, really liked that we had like a monster of the week kind of feel to it, which I think it was really, really cool. Now let's go on to the actual acting part of this. I think Ncuti absolutely killed this episode. He smashed the episode as far as the acting. Again, I think Millie Gibson did an absolute phenomenal job acting in this episode too, because I think, especially in that end scene, both of them did a great job, as well as all of the other characters in this episode. I genuinely didn't think there was any poor acting in this episode at all, so big thumbs up on terms of the acting thing. But the only thing I will say with the acting is I think that the Doctor should have been a bit more, like, it was very impactful, don't get me wrong, it was definitely an impactful scene, but it didn't have the same impact as, say, 10 at the in the End of Time Part 2, when he's like trying to bargain with Wilf to essentially sacrifice his own life for Wilf to walk free, which he does in the end, but it does definitely take a lot of like, oh, I thought I was out of this, I thought it was done, and then that performance was just insane to me. I absolutely loved that performance back then, and I don't think this quite matches up to that performance, and I'm going to state a few reasons why I think it didn't. Number one, I don't think it had a lot of movement in it. Like, I think the acting was very much Ncuti standing in this one spot, and he's like expressionate with his arms and moving around a bit, but he didn't really do like a dramatic, like, it was a dramatic performance because it did really, really hit hard, and I really, really did like that performance, but there is like a few things that he could have done to like really bring it up. Like, another thing that I always think is like when the boat is just going away, like he just sort of stands there and sheds a tear. Like, it would have been a little bit cooler if he would have, like, ran up to the edge of the little pier bit and he's, like, shouting over to them to try and make them listen and just carry on, like, trying. And then this whole bit where he, like, finally can't get through to them. He realizes they're gone, they're long gone, they're probably going to die, and he couldn't do anything to save them. And then that's when he breaks and he snaps. Maybe he, like, kicks something over or something like that. And, like, I think that would have been more, like, impactful in terms of an ending. But I've got to say, it was definitely an impactful ending, and he did a really, really good job of it. And you got to remember as well, it was Ncuti's first day on set as well. So you've got to say this is the first thing he did for Doctor Who. So I do think we're gonna get some better Ncuti Gatwa 15th Doctor moments in the next couple of episodes. Specifically, the finale. I do think that we are going to get some really, really good performances from Ncuti Gatwa in this finale episode, which is why I'm genuinely so hyped for this episode. We also have the Regency episode as well, which I'm actually very, very hyped for as well. So yeah, very, very excited for them episodes, but I've got to say, overall, really, really good episode. I'm going to have to give it like a 9 out of 10. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this episode and thought it was absolutely solid episode. So yeah, that's basically the end of this video and the end of this whole review. So I want to say thanks for watching. Please comment, like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.